Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, Train Tuesday. Let's see if I can do it right. Got Janek right here.
Yes.
And we've got me.
No.
It's weird. You got to remember it's like backwards or mirror image. But I want to thank you folks for joining us. As always, we've got some neat stuff to show you. We started the month with the Centennials, which that's a huge release. And last week we talked about SD40-2s. So this week we're kind of changing it up a little bit, aren't we, Janek? We're going to do some freight cars now, huh?
Yeah, we got some rolling stock announcements that are pretty cool. Some stuff that ties together with each other and with some locomotives that we've announced recently. So I know there's some things I'm excited for in there.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and bring this up for people to see. In fact, we'll just blow it up a little bit further. So we've got some 20,000 gallon GATC tank cars, and this is in the Genesis series.
Yeah. So this
now go ahead. Sorry, Janet.
No, that's okay. Yeah, this is a nice car. It's a Genesis level car. We actually are offering a couple different versions. There's a general service version and a chemical version. And in this release, the UCLX is a chemical version, and you can tell because the top fittings are different as well as the bottom fittings than the rest of the cars.
Now, these being Genesis, I mean, the beauty of these models is the amount of detail that's in them. And I mean, everything just looks right. They have a nice feel to them. We've released these in the past. And the Prime for Grime ones, man, they're just a ready palette for your weathering and adding rust and grime and all that stuff. They're just perfect for that.
Yeah, especially that Cargill one. That one's really cool because you can see, if you zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, let's zoom in on that.
They either repainted or cleaned off the dirty areas where they re-stenciled the reporting mark and the road number and the data on the car.
Yeah, I mean, it's really noticeable once we zoom in on it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what we see. We see that on if we're rail fanning a daily basis and such. I mean, that's a whole new level. That's pretty cool. I mean, a little bit of work with some weathering, and you've got yourself a really authentic model. I guess a lot of folks say, well, modern, it just doesn't have the same flavor as the old school, from like the transition era. But yeah, you're right, it doesn't. It's a totally different flavor, but it's still a cool era to model. I mean, for one thing, we have the advantage of just looking out our window sometimes to see what's out there. But this is something that in the past a modeler would have to do, and we've just kind of taken it one step further, made it a little bit easier for you. And yeah, really cool. There was another one up here too, isn't there? Another Prime for Grime.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yeah, the UCLX one, like we talked about before, that one is kind of an off-white with the faded red band down the middle, which is a hallmark of the chemical carrying cars. That one, I believe, is stenciled for hydrochloric acid.
Oh, okay.
Which is a very common commodity that's carried by these cars.
So that, like you said, that's a real common one. What other types of liquids would we see hauled in these typically?
Well, like you see in the quality liquid feed, that one is carrying liquid feed.
Some type of agricultural type.
Right. Same with the Griffin Industries. They're mostly using agricultural service.
Okay.
And then the GATX car, that one's not stenciled for anything in particular. That's just a plain Jane black car. The HPCX is Hercules powder, and that would probably be carrying something associated with their manufacturing of blasting chemicals and other explosives. So.
Now, one thing that I noticed too is like we've done in the past. These are all Genesis tank cars, but we are offering them in different eras. Like the HPCX, we've got it noted for 1970s plus. The one beside it, the one that we talked about earlier, the GATX Cargill, that's 1996 plus. And then we also got them for 2000s plus. Now, one thing that most guys know is, you know, a 1970s car, you'll notice not quite as much lettering, not as much cautionary print on those cars. But I noticed one thing that
that's true.
Real common now is the road numbers are not just on the sides of the cars anymore. They put them in on the top as well. So little details from just, you know, depending on the era that you're modeling, really sets these apart. We've got a really nice range here. We've got everything from 1974 all the way to 2000s plus. So,
yeah, and cars were all built in the 1970s by General American Tank Car at their Sharon, Pennsylvania plant. But they survived for quite a while, upwards of 40 years in some cases. And so that's why you've got the same kind of tank car with different eras, because depending on how it's painted and stenciled, that determines the dates which it is appropriate for.
and you know, not only like you were saying, these cars were originally built in the 1970s, and they've continued till now. But really, you're going to see these just about anywhere in North America too, right?
Yeah. Being general service and chemical tank cars, they are not limited to any particular railroad or any particular region for that matter. You could see them all across North America. I've seen photos of cars operating in Mexico and Canada of the same design as well.
Yeah, so it's just a really good fit, no matter what era or part of the country or anything that you're modeling. These would probably be a great fit.
Mm-hmm.
And since they are Genesis, man, you don't really get to appreciate a tank car until you see one of these Genesis cars up close. There's so much to them. You know, it's easy enough to say, well, yeah, it's a cylindrical body with some trucks, but it's not quite that simple.
There's a lot of detail that goes into them for sure.
That's an exciting release right there. I mean, that covers a lot of ground, and I think that's something that really is needed. You don't see as many tank cars of this quality out there, so this would make a great set for your layout or even your modular layouts. Let me scroll down a little bit. And let's see. So if you're in the modern era, this is probably something that you could use. We've got some Gunderson Maxi-III 5-unit well cars.
Yeah, the Maxi-III, they were 48 feet long for each platform, and they used to be some of the most common intermodal well cars that you could find out there running, especially in the 1990s and the early 2000s, when the 48-foot domestic containers really caught on. When the 53-footers were introduced, these cars kind of fell out of favor because they can't carry a 53-foot can on the bottom level, only on the top. And so a lot of these cars ended up getting rebuilt into different kind of lengths, either shorter or longer. But I've still seen some of the 48-foot cars out there running around. I saw a BN set just the other day running on the BNSF in Fullerton, and it was carrying 40-foot containers. So they're definitely still out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm seeing a lot of we're offering them in Santa Fe, the original Santa Fe, of course, and then the Burlington Northern that with they kind of had a unique intermodal logo for that. We got Ferromix in there too. That sounds familiar. We're offering those SD40-2s. We've got Southern Pacific, and these are all for the 1990 era, maybe late 1990s era. And like you were saying, you said they're not as common as they used to be, but they're still, they're still out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And then you've also got the TTX versions. You've got the 1990s, which was real common at one time. You've also got the newer one that's 2005 plus with the newer TTX logo.
Yeah, and not a whole lot of cars received that logo, but there were some that received the newer forward-thinking logo, which was introduced in 2005, like you said. And so that's a good car if you're modeling anytime in the 2000s. It's a modern car, and it can hold any of the Athearn containers that we're going to be offering. We got a lot of containers planned. I know. I was just working on some. So.
It's amazing how freight has changed just in the last 20 years. When these were out 25 years ago, this was the beginning of I guess you'd say mainstream intermodal. There's lines that kind of experimented with it, but this was really kind of would you say, Janek, this is kind of like the beginning of the real push for intermodal?
The 1980s is definitely when the floodgates opened, and then even more into the 90s, which is just when this car was introduced, and it was a very durable car and a very successful car. And there are still 40-foot and 53-foot versions of these cars out there as well, and they're super common. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great offering, and I mean, again, stuff that would go well with what we've talked about earlier. So, it's a great offering. It's going to cover a lot of different eras, more of your modern era type transportation. But yeah, definitely. Very cool. And this style of Gunderson 5-unit well car, this was more in, what do you say, Janek, like in the early 1990s they came out with this style?
This is like the mid-1990s. This is a 5-platform car. And like I said, each platform is 48 feet, which was, at the time, the longest permitted containers that were operating domestically. And one cool detail that we have on this car is that the inner trucks have larger wheels than the trucks at the ends, and that's because they have to support more weight. They're supporting basically 2 halves of a car instead of just one if they're in the middle, and our models like that as well.
Wow. Well, that's great, and like you said, that's going to go well with the containers that we're going to be coming out with, as well as the containers that we have currently. So, a great model to have. Well, let's see what else we've got.
Here's the one I've been waiting for.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about this. I remember we touched upon it briefly at the beginning of the month, but you've got some really good info on these.
Well, and I'll admit that I don't know nearly as much about it as some people do. But in the 1990s, up in Northern California was a sugar beet operation, run by Holly Sugar, which is part of the Andersons. So that's why you see the Andersons listed on there, even though the car says Holly Sugar, at least the white one does. That was a joint operation between Southern Pacific and the California Northern. And if you guys remember, we recently announced the California Northern GP15s.
That's right. Yeah.
Great with those. They ran these cars in unit trains, and they weren't solid unit trains because, as you see here, there are 5 different versions basically, and they were all mixed up. They all came from different backgrounds. You see the Colorado and Wyoming cars down there, the Helm Leasing,
Okay.
the Cape, the CB and Central Nova Scotia down there as well, secondhand cars. They were all mixed in together, and they made some really colorful trains.
Now the white one here, I wanted to get back up to that. This is an Anderson's car, but it says Holly Sugar.
Right. So Holly Sugar is part of the Andersons group. So
Okay. All right.
that's why it says Andersons on it. It's most people know it as a Holly Sugar car.
Okay. So, I mean, and, you know, besides the Andersons, you're going to see these used for mainly coal, but like for power plants and things of that nature, right?
Right. So the first 3 road names, the Energy Development, the SMEX, and the Omaha Public Power, those are power plant unit coal train cars. So those are not sugar beet cars. But those are new road names for these Ortner 5 bays that we've never offered before. And they really add some nice color. It's not every day you see a train of green or blue hopper cars. That's pretty eye-catching. So we thought those would do well. We never offered them before. The IP6 is cool too. It's got a nice little logo on the side of it, which is in the shape of the state of Iowa. Which is really cool. We've got some photos for that one.
Yeah, you know, the other thing too, that easy enough to make a nice train of these too, is not only are they offered in singles, but they're offered in multi-packs or a 5-pack. And in this case, you've got 3 different 5-packs to purchase. So you can make up a train pretty quickly. Yeah.
Well, especially the beet train. I mean, if you, and I'm not asking you to do this, but if someone was to buy every single beet car that we were offering, I don't know how many cars that would be. First person to answer that gets a shout out, but that would be a nice unit train.
That would look really nice. Yeah, that would be impressive. And you know, as far as era, we're talking, this is a present day modern era freight car.
This is the 1990s for the sugar beet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, gee, I wonder what kind of locomotive they would use to pull these, Janek.
Well, like I said before, the California Northern used their GP15s on these trains, and SP would use pretty much anything. I've seen GP40-2s, GP60s, tunnel motors, you name it. I've seen it on those beet trains. So
that would be a really impressive train, especially if you're part of a modular club. You could really have an impressive display. And these cars, again, they're really nicely detailed.
Yes.
All the hard work's been done. Janek's done all the hard work of doing the research on them. So really all you've got to do is build the train.
Build the train, find the power. Those of you in the know will know that these cars in real life, they had side extensions, which were basically a metal grate attached to the top edges of the car. And we have included those, or we will include those in the box with these cars so that you can recreate that as well.
That's really impressive. I mean, it's something that you can have a really, I mean, they're ready to run, but that doesn't mean they don't lack the detail. They really do have a lot of detail, and the research that goes into finding the different road names and finding the different little aspects of them is a lot of work. In the past, if you really wanted an accurate train built with these type of cars, you really had to do a lot of work in the old days.
Yeah.
And not anymore. And I mean, Janek, I mean, when you do something like this is something that bears repeating. You know, a lot of folks just think we just find a freight car, we put some colors on it, we call it good. It's not that easy. How many hours do you figure it takes sometimes to do research to find these different cars in order to bring them to the public?
Well, just for the sugar beet cars, we probably spent a good 2 or 3 days scouring the internet. There were a couple good posts on train orders with some great photos there. I pulled out my old Pentrix DVD of the California Northern, and we would pause it at different points in the train and try and say, okay, is that a Helm Leasing car? Is that a Black Anderson's car, or is that a CBNS car? And we tried to figure out how many of each kind of car was in the train, excuse me, so that when we offered them, we could offer a mix of cars that was accurate. Like you see, we're offering more white cars than red, and that's because in real life there were a lot more of the white cars than the red. So we wanted to offer a representative sample of what actually was in the trains. And it took a good 3 days worth of solid research just to do that.
Yeah, I believe it. That's, you know, a lot. We've kind of left the era of, you know, just generic cars, painting them in different freight schemes. We've been afforded now of folks like Janek that does all this research and makes your trains that you put together, whether it be on a club layout or a modular layout or your home layout, and just make it that much more accurate. And for somebody that used to do a lot of my own custom stuff, I kind of like to relax and just let somebody else do the work, and that way I've got more time to spend on my layout. And I think we're seeing a lot better layouts nowadays because of selections like this. Let's see what else we've got in September. I know we've got more freight cars than these.
I think for my shout out, I see at 1:48 p.m. Sebastian Signamora said 45 cars, and I believe that is the correct answer. So thank you, Sebastian. If someone was before him and I missed it, I'm sorry. The comments don't always come in right on time for me. So, but yeah, a 45 train, that's about as long a train as you would need for most layouts, I would say.
And in an HO, that would be an impressive looking train.
Yeah.
So next, we've got some Roundhouse offerings. These are great cars that can be used anywhere, just about any time. These are the little PS2 covered hoppers, and we've got a pretty good range of eras, pretty good range of color schemes. Tell us a little bit about the Roundhouse covered hoppers.
Well, the Roundhouse, this is a Pullman Standard 2003 cubic foot covered hopper. Some of you might remember this car from the old NBC Roundhouse line. And it's kind of funny because for a while, Athearn Roundhouse meant the mostly the old time prototype locomotives and rolling stock, and then we changed it to be the more affordable line of rolling stock, and this car has come full circle now from NBC Roundhouse, and now it's back into the Roundhouse line. So I thought that was interesting. It's for its time, you know, it was a dimensionally accurate model. Some of the details on it were a little bit thick, but that's not always a bad thing because that means that it's going to stand up to handling and running and transporting it. So the whole point of these cars is to have a nice looking, nicely painted, accurate car. It's got an etched metal roof walk, so it looks good. It's not as detailed as a Genesis or RTR, but it's priced so that you can get a 3 or a 4-pack. I see we're offering 4-packs for some of these roads with different paint schemes than the singles. And that lets you build up a train a whole lot more affordably than if you had to do it for Genesis cars, for example.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. The Genesis cars are absolutely amazing, and like those tank cars we talked about earlier, absolutely gorgeous. They hold up really well in photography. But if, say, you've got a lot of us have layouts and we like to have a few friends over, we might have an operating session, or we might want to take, we might be part of a modular club. We want to take stuff to run. You might not be as inclined to take the Genesis cars for a couple of reasons. One, for me anyways, with finely detailed locomotives and cars, transportation was always an issue, you know. And, you know, let's be honest, things happen when you're on the road, or if you're doing an operations at your house. Folks that aren't familiar with your layout, I mean, we've all been there. So this is a great offering where you're getting a accurate car with a great paint scheme. And like you said earlier, a very varied paint scheme, so you can build up your train easily, but still nicely detailed, but not the ultra detail. So they've got some handability to them.
Yes. And like you said, the decoration on these is up to our standards across the board. It is it's high quality paint and printing. The colors are accurate. The printing is going to be up to the same standards as the rest of our line. Not, you know, just because it's Roundhouse doesn't mean that we're going to skimp out on that. We still want to make a nice looking car that when it's rolling by in a train, you know, you say, oh, you know, it looks right. It doesn't. It's not supposed to draw your attention because of some nuance with its decoration. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got some, again, you've done a lot of research here. We were talking earlier about the different lines, and within those lines, you've got different paint schemes. So we've got, you know, first one here, we've got a Southern Pacific covered hopper. It's offered as a single, and then we have a 4-pack, but it's slightly different. It's got a slightly different font, a little bit different layout of the lettering. So
if you zoom in on those 4-pack SPs, I think it's lettered for sand service only.
You know what? Let me check.
That's a difference there.
I'm seeing a label there.
Somebody was asking the era for these cars. These cars were built. They were some of the first mainstream covered hoppers that were built, and so these cars were built starting in the 1950s. And they were common through the 1980s, I would say.
So yeah, the one that's in the multi-pack is for cement loading.
Cement loading.
That's cool.
Cement and sand were the two most common commodities for these cars.
Now, what you were saying earlier too, I know as far as grain here in the Midwest, before the covered hopper, a lot of grain elevators were still getting grain in 40-foot box cars. Can you imagine how difficult that would be? And now you've got these covered hoppers with the discharge doors on the bottom. Boy, that must have saved a lot of time.
These would have been a big difference. And then again in the 1960s, when the 100-ton grain cars were introduced, that was another revolution in carrying grain. But this was sort of the first step. This was the transition from box cars to covered hoppers with these cars right here.
You know, like you were saying earlier, because of them being Roundhouse, it doesn't mean that they're any less quality. The printing on these is just as sharp as anything else that's out there. They're accurate, and metal etched walkways. I mean, they look absolutely fantastic. And so for taking to a club layout or running on operations night or anything like that, they're still going to hold up really well. There's nothing to take away from these cars. Absolutely beautiful.
The worst part of those old NBC kits was the walkway. It was about a scale foot thick, and it was really, really crude.
So we've got a Milwaukee Road offering as well.
That's another good one.
I'm pretty sure that they had quite a few of those. And again, you're offering them in the single with the small Milwaukee Road logo.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the multi-pack, we've got a slightly different paint scheme where it's spelled out, different error or different use. And I mean, these would look great on a, like a unit train of these, or even if you just did a small branch line, you'd have a couple of these in there.
Yeah.
Now the one that's kind of cool, I love the way this was done. For Chicago Northwestern, I mean, they had some really cool paint schemes. And for the singles, we've got the standard kind of the gray color CNW with the black and white style logo, and we're offering that in 3 different road numbers. But if you go with the multi-pack, not only do you get a different car, you get 2 different cars, really.
Yeah, two yellow ones and 2 green ones.
That's pretty cool. Now, Janek, you might know, I don't know off the top of my head, but was there a reason why C&W did this? Did they were they for different uses?
C&W guys, if you're on here, you can correct me. But from my experience, there seems to be no rhyme or reason to what cars got painted in what colors and at what time. I know that the C&W logo itself went through several changes over the course of the years. And I know that the yellow car, what's called the Zito yellow, that was introduced later. But as far as what cars got painted and when, I haven't found a lot of rhyme or reason to it. So.
That's interesting. And I mean, for somebody that's modeling, say the Midwest or the upper Midwest, I mean, that's perfect. You get 3 different paint schemes. Mm-hmm. It's, again, real easy to build up a train. Now, I know we've got some hardcore Chessie fans out there, so we haven't forgotten them. We've got a Chessie version, Western Maryland Chessie version. We've got the singles. And Chessie, in my opinion, is one of those lines that you just got to love. They had a cool paint scheme. The C&O, the B&O, and the Western Maryland got together, and they became the Chessie system. And it's just a neat line. And in my opinion, I don't think we see it enough. Actually, it's a cool line.
My wife likes it because of the cat. She's a cat.
Yeah, a lot of us with our wives and girlfriends have that. They like the cat. They like the cat in the logo, and it was a product of its time. Yes. 1970s, but it was a really nice color scheme, I think. It's one of those that it's kind of like the Rock. You either like it or you don't. A lot of the folks that are used to more transition era, they're not a fan of it. But for some of the younger guys out there, the 70s really offered us a lot of really cool paint schemes, and Chessie's certainly one of them. So this would be perfect with some of the offerings that we've had in the past.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's see. We're going back out west again. I'll go scroll through here.
North with that one and west with that one.
Yeah. So we got some Denver Rio Grande. And this one we're offering both as a single and as a 4-pack. And that speed lettering with the gray, that's a really sharp looking car.
Yeah, that's pretty much the as-delivered scheme for Rio Grande. I don't know the delivery year. If you zoom in, you could see it on the car side there, but I would imagine it's in the 1950s based on how it's.
Yeah, let's see if we can zoom in on that. It might be a little bit of a lag on this, but yeah, you're pretty much spot on. 3 of 56.
56. So, yeah.
Very cool.
And I'm sure that those lasted at least 20 years without being repainted for the most part. So.
Then last but not least, we've got Northern Pacific. And I'm sure a lot of these lasted right up into the Burlington Northern era.
Yes. Northern Pacific, they're kind of weird. They love to paint these big NP monads on their box cars. But on their hopper cars, almost no decoration at all. They're ore cars. They're open hoppers, covered hoppers, just the Northern Pacific on there. It's smaller than the reporting marks, so an interesting.
Yeah, that's right. It's different. Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, that's what they did.
You're certainly right too with that with their logo there. They put that on, they emblazoned it on their box cars and things of that nature. But when it came to these type of cars, they pretty much kept it simple. Maybe for maintenance reasons more than anything. But, yeah. So we've got these offered in singles as well, and a 4-pack. So, man, if you like covered hoppers, it's a good month for you to place an order with your dealer, because we've got some great offerings here. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit.
So what else do we have going on this month?
So we're going to get off the rails for a little bit, and we've got some yard tractors.
Oh, I know. We're asking for these. I think it was either last time or the time before that I saw like 4 or 5 people telling us to bring back the yard tractors, especially in those sort of generic owner-operator schemes.
So these are things that probably where you're at, Janek, you probably see them a little bit more often than we do here. We'd have to go to Chicago to see these, but for the most part, these are the trucks that kind of move the shipping containers from the crane to the actual cars. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the trucking world's version of a switcher. They work the yards. They work short distance runs. I've seen them out on the road, not so much the highway, but I've seen them out on the street delivering containers. And then some of them are owned by a particular railroad. Like you see here, we're offering a few different railroad-owned tractors. A lot of them are pretty nondescript, white or yellow, with no particular owner. So we've offered those versions as well.
That way too, if you've got some guys that have their own railroad, they can, you've got a yellow version, a white version, 2 very common colors.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, those are the kind of things that you're going to need if you're doing modern day intermodal. I mean, these are just as common as any other piece of equipment in an intermodal yard, or sometimes too, like we've got UPS here. You'll see those in their own operations. So
yeah, definitely.
And it was something that we were getting. People were asking for these, so they're going to be definitely making their way to their dealers to place an order on here. We've got some cool road names too, like you were saying. We've got Canadian National.
I like their. They went the extra mile with the CN one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, usually, like you look at, we'll pick on BNSF. You look at them. They've got a white truck and it's got their logo, and that's pretty much true with all of their off-rail vehicles. But then, you get Canadian National. It's like, we're going to represent our colors here.
Yeah, and, put the locomotive paint scheme on it. It looks cool.
It does. I mean, it's probably it's the one that catches your eye out of the group. It really does. We got Wisconsin Central. It's a great line that I got to rail fan many years ago. We got the hybrid, and of course UPS.
That's a good generic one as well. I've seen some of those hybrid tractors that they've been testing out in different places. So it's not based on anything specific. We kind of made up our own hybrid logo for it, but it fits right in with a group of tractors in the terminal scene.
Definitely, it's got a nice looking paint scheme to it as well. You've got the UPS with the current day logo,
right?
With your current operations. Got a few more railroad owned tractors as well. We've got CSX and BNSF. So, we're thinking of the modern guys here, and for the guys that are freelancing or they want to do something on their own, we've got two other options for you besides the hybrid. You can put your own decals on there, or if there was a road that this time we didn't grab, you can always put that on there. I'm pretty sure the Boston and Maine didn't have these. So, I don't think I'll have to get that. BN probably, but not Boston and Maine.
And if you don't mind, Jim, keep scrolling down because there's sort of a little Easter egg down at the bottom of this announcement.
Okay.
It's that last bullet point there.
As seen in intermodal yards around the country. Am I missing one?
And the one down there on the left, where it says
need something to pull. 20-foot containers and chassis in October, huh?
Yep. Huh. They're coming. We're gonna do the 20-foot reefer containers and a container chassis to go with them, so you'll be able to give your yard tractors something to pull. And we got some new road names too, which I'm pretty excited about.
So yeah, you've been working on that for a while, and yeah, like you said, you got that little Easter egg out there. So guys, keep that in mind as we get closer to the 25th October. We're going to be offering those, and you're going to like we've been saying, you're going to want something to pull with those. So perfect timing, man. Definitely. That's just great. Well, I mean, it's a great month. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that's going to keep us busy. And once again, I don't think the wife can hear me, so I should be in good shape there.
So what are you in for?
Yeah, there's so much. We talked about the centennial beginning of the month, and I'm typically not a UP guy, but that locomotive is so cool, and it's got so many things about it that make it cool that I'll probably get one, even if I just put it, here in the workshop or somewhere just on display. What about you?
It's an iconic locomotive for sure. I don't think I'm going to be in for any of those, but I think my soft spot's going to be the Arizona, California SD40-2s. I already have the green and white 45-2s. So that'll be sweet to be able to add on to that and make a nice little train out of it.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. So, yeah, and I see one comment there, somebody asking 1 20-foot container. No, we're going to do more than just 1 20-foot container. I mean, we're going to have some.
They're asking for the Ocean Network Express container, their abbreviation, and to that I say, check back next month. You'll be happy. And Mr. Sirius G there is asking for tropical, and he is also probably going to be happy if he checks back next month. So
yeah, there's going to be some great stuff. I mean, this month has been great. I mean, both of us have seen things that we would like for our own layouts and our own reasons. And once again, I just, to show everybody, both Janek and I, we love this. Matt loves this. We sometimes have a problem with with the stuff that we collect along the way, but that's part of the fun of the hobby, right?
Yeah, and we work
to
solve it.
I'm going to check and see what we've got for rail fanning. I was going to visit Kansas City, but I bet you most of the guys on here heard what happened there this morning.
Hey, Jim, real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I got a box in the mail yesterday from our factory.
Okay.
I want to show off a few of the cars that I got. I think there's some people that might be interested.
I'm sure there'd be a lot of guys out there be interested, including myself.
Well, they're not Boston and Maine, I'm sorry to say.
Oh man.
But I have an update on the Trinity 5161s here.
Okay. Let me put this up for you. Oh wow. That is pretty cool.
So I just got, these are the first decorated samples. Just got them in the mail. It's not apparent from this photo, but we've been doing some behind the scenes work on the Trinity cars, just to sort of improve the fit and finish on them. And the first thing I noticed was how straight the end cages are on these cars. The ladders are straight, the stirrups are straight. You know, that wasn't exactly a strong point of these cars in the past. They were kind of fragile. If they got bumped, they could get damaged kind of easily. So I was really impressed with that. This, of course, is the BNSF patched GATX car. I got a couple other cars as well to show. There's the Potash, or the Potash. One of my favorites.
Nice.
And these are, of course, in the Genesis line again. And then here is a really interesting one.
Wow.
I don't know the story behind this car as to why the real car looks like this. But if you go look up the BNSF 474424, this is how it looks. It's a very distinctive looking car with the sort of the Two-Face right out of a Batman movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of looked like they took the old Santa Fe mineral brown, just kind of put whatever tan or brown they had in the shop and used that early logo on it.
Yeah, it's really cool. That's a really nice prime for grind car right there. I'm sure the guys are going to do some terrible things to it with the weather and it's going to look great. So yeah, I just want to show those off. They look great. I'm probably going to approve them all with not too many changes at all, and looking forward to doing more Trinities sometime soon.
Yeah, no, those are great cars. I mean, thanks for sharing those with us, because that really we're getting some really good comments on those. I think for the consensus, people really like the Prime for Grime, and one like that BNSF that you showed, the last one. That's a really cool scheme. I mean, it is. You know, it's a necessity scheme. It wasn't all about prettiness. They just need to make revenue. So
it doesn't have to look pretty if it's going to make money.
That's just it. Well, cool. I'm going to see if I can bring up Elkhart, Indiana for us and see how that's going. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm guessing over at Kansas City, there's not a whole lot moving on the UP right now.
No, not when I checked in this morning. There was a pretty good derailment over there. So I'm pretty sure that hasn't moved since I looked at it earlier this morning.
Definitely something you don't see every day, and I'm sure that the NTSB is going to appreciate having that video. I mean, it happens right in front of the camera. So,
yeah. Of course, you know, in our defense, doesn't it seem like when we're trying to do something, that's when our finger slips and we derail our own trains?
Oh yeah, that's Murphy's Law. You start recording your models, it's either going to derail, the sound's going to cut out, or it's going to come uncoupled, or whatever problem is going to crop up right there.
Yes. Yeah, that is definitely true. Well, Janek, what do you say? You want to take some questions?
Sure, I do. We've gotten quite a bit of comments since we started.
So,
well, why don't you throw a couple of them up there?
Yeah, let's see what we've got. We've got some really good comments, especially when you had those freight cars that just came in. Let's see. We've got a vote here from Sebastian on more one containers, 20 and 40 both, high cube and reefer. So it sounds like you probably got something in the works around that.
Sebastian, my advice to you is to check next month's announcement if you like the Ocean Network Express stuff. That is my sage advice.
Somebody with a comment previously on some of your cars, weathering it would be fun and simple. That's true. I mean, again, with the Prime for Grime, we've done a lot of the hard work for you. I mean, I've done that myself in the past, trying to lighten the colors or just putting different things in and masking it for an airbrush. And, but by the time you get ready to go weathering, you might have lost interest in doing all the prep work, and Athearn's taken that away for you. I mean, you can just get right to the fun part.
Lightening the paint is definitely the hardest part of a project like that. So
yeah,
we've done the hard work, like you said.
Let's see. Do you see any questions out there, Janek, that you'd like to answer?
Let's see. Someone was asking about the V-Rail P42s. There has been no update on the V-Rail P42s, so unfortunately, I have nothing. I have nothing to say other than we're still hopeful on that.
Yeah, check that out. Got ourselves a heritage unit today.
Very nice. There's a heritage unit. That explains why those guys were set up for the shot down there.
Very cool paint scheme.
Nice. There were a couple questions about Matt Gentry. Where's Matt? Matt's fine. He's still with Athearn. He is hard at work on new projects, and he will be back on the video when there's a new tooling project to talk about. We'll bring Matt in and have him go over that. So I know you guys miss him. He will be back. Trust me on that one.
Yeah, he's pretty much swamped. I know that. I mean, Janek, you're swamped too with so much going on. Yeah, we'll have Matt here pretty soon because we're going to have throughout the year, we're going to have some neat stuff coming out that we're going to have Matt talk about. So Matt is still here. He's just busy like crazy trying to get new stuff for all of us.
Yeah. Somebody, let's see, Dan Witten was asking about 40-foot reefer trailers at 222. Dan, we did not announce 40-foot reefer trailers this month, but if I was you, I would check back next month. And that's all I'm going to say.
Let's see.
Thomas
Tim Peters is asking. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Tim Peters is asking any new MKT or Frisco products. Well, like Janek said earlier, I'm kind of wait a little bit. We're always coming out with new roads. We want to make sure we get all the roads well represented for everybody. So
yeah,
stay
Tim,
tuned.
I'd like to do some MKT Jeep 9s. I don't know if they would be chop nose or not. I got to see if we got the right bones for it. But I would like to do MKT. So keep in mind that I'm looking into that.
Let's see. It's one of those things, Janek, I know when you're doing research, from the outside it seems simple, but man, when you say, let's just say you're working on a Jeep 9, there's so many different areas that you can cover, so many different roads that primary owners, secondary owners, sometimes 3 or 4 different owners. It takes up a lot of time. And so when we come out with a specific locomotive, sometimes we'll get a comment that says, that road didn't have that bell that way or something of that nature. You got to realize we're not just pulling stuff off the internet either. Janek has got a huge collection of print books and photos and slides and everything else. And so when we introduce a locomotive, it is for a specific time. We try to make that as specific as possible, and that's why the colors are the way they are. Why the details are the way they are, because we all know especially some of those smaller lines. You know, in February of '66, a locomotive might look like this, and by summer of that year, they might have replaced something. So there's a lot to it, isn't there, Janek?
It really depends on what year. Even 1 year can make a big difference in how something looks. Any other comments you see out there that you want to respond to?
Let's see. Here's an interesting one I'll throw up there by Walter. He's asking, what about a F7 and CSX business unit? Is that something that we've ever considered?
Walter, I know the CSX units you're talking about. You probably won't see them in Genesis from us because they were extensively modified. The biggest problem is that they they took out the portholes on the side of the unit. And that's not a variation that we're able to recreate. Although we've done them in the Roundhouse line before in the CSX paint scheme. But that's more of a generic model, as I'm sure you know. So for the Genesis one, it would need some new tooling, and it's not something that we're currently looking into. But it might be something that we investigate down the road.
And I mean, with that particular locomotive, it was heavily, modified from its original state too. Is that right?
Yes. I don't have a laundry list of the changes they made to the body, but it was pretty extensive.
Here's one we'll put up there. Somebody is requesting, they're looking for Genesis SD7s and 9s. Pretty common locomotive. In fact, BNSF was using them for the hump yard in Galesburg for a few years, up till about 10 years ago. Lot of research into something like that, though, wasn't there?
Yeah, you're talking about a pretty extensive project because not only would it be SD7s and 9s, but it could also be SD18s and SD24s. And I think even SD35s are still riding on the same frame with pretty much the same trucks. I'm sure there were minor differences, but that would be quite an extensive project there.
When you consider with the -9s that we just talked about last month, I know Matt has said before, and I think he said it on here, 3 years of research alone. Just, researching and working with all of the drawings and CAD drawings and such. So it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, and -9s, that's just one locomotive, and I think I just rattled off 5 or 6. There's some carryover there. There's some shared components. When we look at what projects we're going to do, we try and see, okay, what can we get out of this part? Does it give us more than one thing? And that makes it more appealing than, say, a cab that would only be good for one specific locomotive.
Yeah, that's one thing that sometimes we get questions at shows, why haven't you done this locomotive? And like Janek is saying, we have to think of the big picture. We want to see that we can get you locomotives that were used by a lot of railroads with very minimal changes to it, and then we want to make it affordable to you as well. So there's a lot of things that we have to sit down and think about, and like those -9s, just the research alone just took so long, but we wanted to do it right, and I think we can agree, Janek, those -9s, they just look great.
The drawings sure look great. I can't wait to actually see one and get to run it.
We had the opportunity to, Matt had the prototypes with us not too long ago, and I got to see the 3 of them, and it's just, the details just amazing. the things that we are able to do now that wasn't possible even 10 years ago. So I'm glad I got my pre-order for my Dash 9, even though it's not a locomotive I would typically model. Yeah. It's still a cool locomotive, and the road names we offered are just perfect. Getting a request here for cabooses. This is coming in from Daniel Archer. Kansas, Oklahoma Gulf, and Midland Valley Jeep 7s, and he's also asking for KO and G ICC cabooses. Man, there's a list for you.
The KO and G equipment, that's been something I've been talking to Daniel and some other guys about for a while now. That stuff all eventually became part of Missouri Pacific.
Okay.
The cabooses are especially interesting because they were painted in several different paint schemes, and it's very similar to the Seaboard Airline Genesis caboose that we currently have in our line. So that's been sort of one of my projects that I'm really looking into, and see if we can release it sometime soon here.
Great. Well, we're about at 4:30. Another great day. Train Tuesday. We got a little bit of rail fanning in. We got to see a heritage unit. A lot of great comments out there today. And once again, I mean, my wallet might be a little bit light at the end of this month. We've got some really great freight cars, locomotives, a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, and speaking of heritage units, NS had 10 that were SD70 Aces, and UP had 6. We're contemplating if and when we should release those heritage units again. So let us know which ones you're looking for, which ones you're hoping to see, and give us an idea of what you're looking for as far as the heritage units there. So.
Definitely, and I mean, again, Matt, Janek, and I, we all look at the comments. There's a lot of comments that come in on a daily basis on social media, and of course here on Train Tuesday. But we do read the comments. We do appreciate what you have to say, and we do listen. We try to make it fun for everybody, and so go ahead and keep commenting and subscribe to our channel, and just be prepared. Next Tuesday we'll do it again. We'll have some more rail fanning and talk some more about trains.
Hey, sounds good to me.
All right. Janek, thanks for joining me again today. You're a wealth of information, and I know the guys really appreciate everything you do to get the most accurate freight cars and locomotives out there. Until next time, everybody, be safe, especially our friends out on the West Coast. Be safe. Our thoughts are with you. I know Janek knows firsthand. So stay safe out there.
I don't know what time of day it is anymore because it all looks the same. So
I've seen pictures from the office out there. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So be safe out there. You were saying, Janek, too, just in your area, folks with any type of issues with breathing, like asthma or something like that, they're saying not even go outside, right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. They're saying don't go outside at all unless you have to. So hopefully everyone's safe, and if you need to get your food delivered or whatever, then do that. So
definitely. I mean, I know it's with that out west going on. I think we've got a hurricane coming out on the east side. Everybody be safe, stay healthy, have fun in the workshop, run some trains, and until next Tuesday, we'll talk to you then about more trains. So we'll see you next week.
See you guys later.
Hi, Greens, everybody.